Oh yeah, we at it again. We are looking at the Linux experiment. I love Nick, he's a nice guy. I do like to react to his videos once in a while because sometimes I don't agree with him. And people have been pointing this out to me that goodbye Android. This is why I'm leaving Android. As a Linux and open source advocate, this may not be the best move. Because Microsoft is top tier devilish. And Android. Mac, Apple is like second tier devilish in the Linux world. So it's a little bit of a long video. This could end up being a massively long video, so get some beverages.
Hey everyone, this is Nick, and I've been an Android user for most of my life. I started with the Galaxy Nexus, and I've been using Android up until last year with very few brief iPhone-related stints in between. But Android just doesn't work for me anymore on many different levels.
I'm on a 4-year Android sprint, and I would say that for me and everything I do, I don't game on them. Well, I play a little bit of Mahjong and, Unplug Me and stuff like that. But I don't sit and game on them. But I have an Android tablet now because of it, and it does everything I need to do. It's actually starting, so now I can edit videos on it soon, which I may should be making a video on. So I don't get this, but let's see what he's talking about.
And that sucks, because the alternatives, they're not great. So let's unpack this, and let's unpack this segue to today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, and chances... Now let's be...
That dude has too many sponsors, so he has one here. He probably also have one down here. Yep, 30 seconds, so it's over a minute and a half, or a minute and 15 seconds long. How long is this one here? That's about a minute long, so 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Let's do some math there. So if this math is right, I've not done math in years and years, but I rounded it down to 2 minutes. So how many percent is 2 minutes out of 18.02? And you probably will give me the right answer down below, but I found out it's about 11%. So 11% of his videos, or in this video, is ads. Nick, it's too much. I know you need to make money and you need to make a living, but this is too much.
Begin with the first reason why Android is just not working for me anymore. And that reason is the hardware. And I know, that's weird. I mean, Android has so many hardware choices, right? It's one of the strengths of its ecosystem. You get so many options to pick from. Except, well, if you have preferences that go against the current trends, you do not have much choice at.
That goes for everything. If you don't like what the latest trend in pants are, you don't have many choice. If you don't like what the latest trend in car design is, you don't have many choices. So I hate Android because it's not, I don't like this design of it. It's not to my taste. That
At all. My preferences list is relatively small. I want a small phone, around 6 inches or a little bit more than that. I want a high refresh rate display, 90Hz or more, and I want a good camera array that can do video portrait mode, because I use that.
Samsung Galaxy S21, 22, the normal series, they do all of that. I have one right here. This just does everything he just said. And yeah, it has a camera bump, but you can put a case on it and it...
all the time for hardware reviews. Oh, and also, I don't want my phone to be made by a Chinese company.
Made in Taiwan.
I don't need a flagship in terms of specs and power. I don't game on my phone. I don't do anything super intensive. But the fact is, after using a high refresh rate display, there is no way I'm going back to 60 Hz. My laptop is 90 Hz, my desktop is plugged into a 100 Hz monitor, and at that point, only my TV is 60 Hz, and I'm starting to notice.
This one here goes from 100 and something 20 Hz down to 10. It has variable refresh rate. You're only noticing 90 Hz when you're scrolling and shit like that, or watching videos. Other than that, you don't use it. So he's basically saying that he needs this phone.
Yes. Thankfully, my Steam Deck rarely hits over 40 frames per second, so yeah.
That thing is massive, man. How could... I'd rather have a tablet to play with than that's this fucking monstrosity, and it's ugly on top of that, if you ask me.
That choppiness can be attributed to the deck and not to my TV. Now,
Why is nobody bitching about that? Oh, it's on Linux, let's not bitch about it. Anyway.
For the size, current phones are just way too big. Okay, sure, the iPhone 5 style is just too small nowadays, but we've kinda overcompensated in the other direction, don't you think? Seriously, 6.8, 6.9, 7 inches for...
I will agree with that. Phones are getting too big. You might as well just run around with a fucking tablet in your head, in your pants. That's why I always go with the standard S series, you know, when it goes to Samsung, the standard. So when they make a new S23, they have a small, medium, and big size, and you get different hardware, also a better camera in the big one, just get a stylus with the big one. But I run around my phone in my pants. Ladies.
For a phone? That's ridiculous. That's way too big for a phone. As per the provenance of the phone, Chinese manufacturers are a red flag for me. Pun intended, obviously, yeah.
Then go with a Sam.
Now, it's not paranoia, but every Chinese company is legally required to hand over all information about their users to the Chinese government. Which means that if you use their phones with their default Android ROM, their apps or services, or even just their firmware, chances are they're collecting data about you, and that data ends up in the hands of the Chinese government. And if you think that makes me weird, just look at this. Dell is apparently planning to remove every single component or chip made from China from their devices.
I like this.
That's not paranoia. That's being afraid of backdoors that the Chinese government would force onto these chip designing companies.
I like this.
Still, this excludes phones from Xiaomi, Oppo, OnePlus, Huawei, and even Motorola, which belongs to Lenovo, which is a Chinese company. And so this basically just leaves us with Samsung and Google, and both are equally unsuitable.
How? Also, this is like massively outdated fucking phones he's showing us right now.
I used Samsung phones for a long while. I started on the Galaxy S8, then I had an S9 Plus, then an S10e, then an S21. In between some of these phones, I owned a...
What's wrong with the S21?
an iPhone 11, but I kept it for less than a year. The form factor was just bad. I ran the default Samsung ROM on most of these, and /E on others. I'll talk about software a little bit later. And I find Samsung phones great. I even miss the curved edges screen. I don't understand why people are piling on it. Curves are always better, and not just for phones. Now, more seriously, if you ever used a curved edge phone, I don't understand how you can prefer flat glass for a gesture-based navigation system like what Android has. Curved edges make that easy. Now, my problem with Samsung is more in terms of reliability. All phones I owned from them had the exact same issue. After about a year, they stopped recognizing my SIM card.
I have no idea. Maybe it's the France connection. I have no fucking idea. I've had this one, well, since 2021. I have used this on construction sites. I have used this lumberjacking. I've used this in humid environments. Like, I've had this in my pants outside with about 30 degrees centigrade, okay, for 10 hours. Still fucking working, no problem. They've been the most reliable phones I ever had. Handed Android. iPhones as well. When I had iPhones, never had a problem with them. And I dropped this like a lot of fucking times on anything from mud to fucking concrete floors. I don't know if it could... So this is what I think it is. I think it's the card that's the problem and not the phone. You know, it's the quality of the SIM card, basically.
At some point, they'll start saying no SIM card inserted, and whatever I do, I can only fix it by rebooting the phone 2 or 3 times in a row, or removing and reinserting the SIM card.
It sounds really weird. I have used Samsung, and most of my colleagues I've worked with have all used Samsung. Most of my friends have used Samsungs over the years. I've never encountered anyone that had this problem besides now. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I just never encountered anyone with this problem.
Again and again until it manages to detect it. And it's completely random, which means I can never predict when it's going to happen. Sometimes I'll leave the house with my phone in my pocket, not touching it, and at some point during the day I realize that it just lost every kind of signal. It doesn't know my SIM card is there.
Is it the form factor of the card, so it moves around inside the insert? That the form factor is just too fucking small, so it gets leeway for it to vibrate and move around?
And so if anyone has tried to call me, text me, or notify me of anything, I've been in the dark for hours at that point.
That must be nice,
This is
though.
definitely not what you want. At least
No.
it's not what I want. I'm tired of it. So Samsung, they're gone. Which basically only leaves Google.
So people say this is nice. I think it's ugly as balls. But it's a good phone, but I still think it's ugly. Like, I rather look at hairy ass fucking balls all day than running around with this phone.
And the Pixels are highly rated by some people who used them. But first, and it's very subjective, I find them horrible to
Yes,
look at.
thank you.
Camera
Thank
bar
you.
is ugly as sin, the colors are super bland, the bezels around the screen still aren't all the same width,
Thank you.
which triggers me to no end. Maybe I'm difficult, but this thing, that does not look good. This
Thank
is
you.
ugly as
Thank you.
hell. And on top of that, the Pixel reliability track record is really bad. First gen had severe performance degradation over time. The second gen had a bad OLED screen that burned in way too quickly, and
Wow.
a super easy to break USB-C connector. The third Pixels were plagued by software issues. The fourth had a bad screen again and an insecure face unlock mechanism. The fifth had huge manufacturing issues with the
Wow.
screen separating from the main body, which means it barely stayed on sale for any length of time. And the sixth Pixel had issues with the fingerprint sensor not working well, the assistant could ghost dial random contacts, there was a screen flicker issue, basically zero quality control on these phones. And as per the Pixel 7, it now looks like the camera glass is spontaneously cracking. Not a great track record, not confidence inspiring at all. And yes, I know it's a collection of issues that not everyone has experienced. But still, manufacturers that sell 10 times, 100 times the quantity that Pixel sold never had that many issues leveled against any of their product
That's because they have more money. It's not an issue of how much they sell. It's an issue of quality control.
generation. So no Pixels for me. But that's just the hardware, and I'm sure I could look hard and long enough and find something that I would enjoy.
I would say this: beside like Samsung and Pixel, he should keep using Samsung. The issue he has, I don't think it's a Samsung problem. I think it's a SIM card problem, or the carrier not updating the firmware for the SIM card fast enough. You get carrier updates for your SIM cards. They update the communication between the SIM card and your phone. If that's not done fast enough, you can get. I had issues with that at one point because I forgot to update the carrier information. I couldn't text for like a week. What the fuck is going on?
Actually, I'm pretty sure someone will recommend something in the comments that would fit my needs perfectly. Wanna bet someone recommends me a Pixel 7 Pro, the exact opposite of all I want? But even if I could find a device that fits all my needs, there's the software problem. Android is just messy, there's no two ways about it. Depending on which manufacturer you go with, you won't get the same experience at all.
True.
Not the same default apps, not the same app store, not the same settings, not...
But is that not what is great about Linux, though? This is funny. He will sit and praise Linux for an hour about how great it is because of the choice, the individuality, the customizability, that nothing is the same, that you can choose whatever you want and stuff like that. But on his phone, that's not what he wants.
The same look and feel, or even not the same features. Samsung's brand of Android, called One UI,
No. This shows how little he knows about phones. One UI is not Samsung's brand of Android. Samsung's brand of Android is the Samsung Android kernel. One UI is Samsung's user interface. So, One UI is basically Samsung's Windows Manager. It's like what XFCE is for Linux, And then you have Xiaomi using my UI, what it's called. That could be KDE. That's the only difference. I can go right now and install Nova Launcher, MIUI. I can install the native Google UI. If he want, let's say he has a Samsung and he wants a Motorola experience, he can just download the UI from Motorola and install it.
Was pretty good, in my opinion, with a great design flair, easy to use with one hand, with major controls at the bottom of the screen where they belong, good gesture navigation, and looks-wise it was pretty good. But it's riddled with ads that you cannot remove, especially in their news application.
Ads in news applications. You have 10% of your videos being ads. Over 10% of your videos being ads. Okay? Of course there's going to be ads in a news feed. Come on, man.
And also it's a mess of duplicate applications that do the same thing.
True, that's
Samsung
true.
basically throws 3 ecosystems at you at the same time.
No, they throw 2. The Android ecosystem and their own ecosystem, and it is a problem, yes.
Their own, which is shrinking by the day. Microsoft's, which is slowly replacing Samsung services like their photo storage or cloud drive. And Google's.
I will not say the Microsoft ecosystem. It's part of every, you can, like... Yes, it is the ecosystem, but it's not a Samsung-only ecosystem. A lot of phone manufacturers going the Microsoft way because they do fucking make some great products for phones. I'm sorry, you may hate Microsoft, but if you use Microsoft products on your phone, they are actually really fucking great.
Because you have to ship Google apps to get access to the Play Store. Which means that out of the box, you get 2 or 3 different apps that do the exact same thing for multiple apps.
How is this different from installing XFCE? You install, or the distribution maker is making their own way to, let's say, change the resolution or edit configuration for user accounts. So let's look at Gorada, what the fuck it's called. They make their own tools that do the same thing as fucking the control center and XFCE does. Let's look at OpenSUSE, my beloved OpenSUSE that I love so much. I uninstall Yast most of the time because what you do under Yast, I run KDE. I can do 99% or 95% of what Yast is doing, I can do under the KDE settings, whatever, center, what it's called. Linux is the king of duplicated efforts to do the same thing in almost any distribution. Heck, there are even different ways of upgrading systems in most Linux distributions. You have the command line and then you have a GUI interface. He's wrecking the Android ecosystem for having multiple ways of doing the same thing when the Linux ecosystem is the king of having the multiple ways of doing the same thing.
And you can't really remove them, only disable them, but they're still on your phone. This, people,
sucks.
Is what bloatware looks like. Bloatware isn't a distro shipping LibreOffice by default.
It is. Bloatware is undesirable software you don't want. So it's bloatware to you. You may not want Microsoft Teams. There's like I just set up like fucking 20 computers over the last couple of weeks. All of them wanted Microsoft Teams. We all uninstalled them at home, but they wanted it. To me, LibreOffice, anything from LibreOffice, Thunderbird, Firefox is bloatware. I uninstall it on all distributions I run. Maybe not Firefox, but I do try to uninstall LibreOffice and Thunderbird on all my distributions I run because I don't need it. It's bloatware for me. It's unusable, or when I say unusable, it's undesirable to me software. So to me, that's bloat.
Even if you don't need it. Bloatware is a phone manufacturer shipping duplicate or triplicate apps that you cannot delete.
So is that also bloatware on Linux?
And if you go with vanilla Android from Google, then you get something that is way more trimmed down with only Google apps and services. But first, the design is butt ugly again in my opinion.
Yeah.
With horrid pastel colors, huge buttons with so much padding, and generally the feeling of using a kid's toy. I really hate Material U as a design system. It's bad with its color choices, it's bad with contrast, it's got bad UX,
So he's leaving Android because he don't like the design, the taste, and he don't like duplications. There's no technical reason why he's doing it then.
a terrible interface, in my opinion. And also, it's all Google services. That's going to be an issue with all Android phones. I de-Googled my life almost entirely. The only thing I use from them is YouTube, because
Then you have not de-Googled your life. And you go onto the internet, it steals more fucking privacy shit for...
I run this channel. Anything else I plucked year after year, replacing with Nextcloud or other online providers that are more private.
Yeah, but then he goes on to a news site. He goes on to read an article here and there on the internet, and they take...
Going with a Google Pixel or vanilla Android would be a step back in that direction, because even if you don't use all Google services, the OS itself still collects and sends tons of data.
So he just said that de-googling your phone is meaningless. Android do this on any fucking phone. It's not just Google's own Pixel series. This phone do the same fucking thing, okay? It's built into the Android kernel.
All the time about you. It would be a huge step back. Which leads us to alternate ROMs. Yes, there's a whole world out there, and a Pixel with Graphene OS would give me a super secure and private experience.
So what's he bitching about? Oh, it's too hard, the design is ugly, I can't use the apps I want.
But it only works on Pixels, and as I explained, no way I'm buying one of those. Not with that track record. Then there's Lineage, or even /E, my favorite ROM, which goes even further than Lineage in terms of removing Google crap, and has a very nice simple aesthetic that I find super pleasing. I mean, it's quite easy to see what they took inspiration from. Yeah, it's iOS basically, and I'm fine with that. I used /E for about a year on a Galaxy S9 Plus, and I liked it. But at the time it wasn't quite ready. Too many apps didn't work because the phone didn't pass the safety net check, and the App Store just lacked a lot of applications. Nowadays, /E is more than ready. It does pass safety net check, at least it did on the Fairphone 4 I tried it on, which means my banking app worked out of the box, with the security features, two-factor authentication and the like. And it has a better app store with access to every single Google Play Store.
Why is he not using that on his Samsung phone? Oh yeah, the SIM card thing. Why is he not using it on Google Pixel? It's too ugly, bro. I really don't like I really hate the Pixel phone. Like, I really hate the design of it, but I would not be against using it. I would just put a case on it.
Store app and purchases and in-app purchases. Although for all paid stuff, you do have to use a Google account, which kinda defeats the whole purpose of a de-Googled ROM, but I guess you could create an empty new Google account to handle that. /E is what I would use if I could find a phone I like to use it on.
Honestly, this is like accent colors all over. I don't recommend Ubuntu because I can't change accent colors.
Galaxy S21 is in a drawer, and I would love to use that with /E. SIM card problems notwithstanding. But I can't, because they don't support it. Most modern flagships aren't supported until a few years after they're out, and sometimes they're never supported. Which means I'm out of luck. I have very few hardware requirements. I only want a phone that's not sold by a Chinese company, that has a high refresh rate display, and is in the under 6.3 inches range. And I cannot find anything that fits, and that would also be able to run a de-Googled private ROM. So
my question is, have you talked to the place where you bought this phone about that SIM card? Now it looks like he's high on fucking something. Have you gone to the shop where you bought this one here, or your provider, your mobile provider, where you more than likely are leasing this or buying this over a 2-year plan? Because then over those 2 years, you actually, at least in Denmark, we still can go and return it if something is wrong. If this happens to me, or after a year I can return this phone, they have to give me a new one. Have you tried that? Again, it's the first time. Again, I'm an avid Samsung user. This is the first time I've ever heard that SIM card thing. Honestly, it really is. I'm not saying it's not an issue, but I've heard so many other problems with Samsung, don't get me wrong. They are by far perfect.
So there's currently a mismatch between what Android offers and my needs and wants, and that's why I'm ditching Android.
He wants design. He's a consumer, he's not a techie. He's a consumer, he wants nice looking things. All of the videos I have seen of him, he's a consumer. He likes nice things. Nothing wrong with that. But sometimes design is not everything. Like I said, I don't like the design of the S21. I don't like the design of the S22. So I put cases on them. I like this way better. I like this look way better than the look without a case on it.
Which begs the question, what to use now? And I went for an iPhone, but not because I find it better, it's...
The design is better for him. Apple probably takes as much data from you as Google does. Apple is... I know people say, oh, Apple cares about privacy. They really don't. They care about privacy. The only privacy they care about is they don't want to share your data with other people. They want to keep it for themselves so they can use that data to get you to buy more Apple stuff, and they can serve you ads that you then can... that then they get money from the advertisers. That's the only reason why they care about privacy. Everything he just said that is wrong, beside of the design, everything he just bitch and moan about beside the design, and well, there's also multiple ways of doing things in Apple iOS, but the design and the multiple things of doing things, and even reliability is an issue on fucking iPhones. He should not be using an iPhone either.
Actually worse in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's supposedly private, but it collects just as much data as what Google does on Android, only it sends it to Apple for use with their ad network on the App Store.
Exactly.
The hardware is phenomenal though. I went for the 13 Pro and it...
Yeah, show us the track record of iPhone hardware problem. Which one did he use?
The hardware is phenomenal though. I went for the 13 Pro.
5 things you need to know. All the issues reported so far. They have a lot of fucking issues. iPhone hardware have always been regarded as not being too good. I think in his mind he really wants an iPhone and he's just making excuses for wanting an iPhone. You know what, dude? Nobody's going to fucking care if you're running an iPhone, okay? If you really want an iPhone, don't make excuses, just get an iPhone, okay? I know you're a Linux channel. I'm trying to be as myself here as possible. Just get an iPhone. Don't sit and try to justify to yourself you want an iPhone. If you want an iPhone, it's okay. You're not a worse person for running an Android or Apple product. Sorry. I will agree with a little bit of what he says, but like 80% of the problems he have with Android, from the hardware to the software, it's the same over there, man. And some will even say that iPhones are way less reliable. If you just like the design of it, and that's why you want it, then just say it. Hey, it's more nicer than this one to look at, so that's why I'm using it. If you don't like that, fuck off then. You know, like don't sit here and bash hardware on Android hardware just because you want an iPhone. Just say I want an iPhone and use it.
And it puts every other phone I ever used to shame.
You do know that what you're holding right now is using Samsung technology, right? Samsung have made the fucking screen that you're using. I think they used to be LG, I think it's now Samsung. If I'm not mistaken, didn't he say something about not wanting anything from China?
Stainless steel is just a better material than aluminium. It's hefty, but it's small, it doesn't have rough edges, it's just wonderfully made. Sometimes there's a piece of hardware that just feels right in your hands. I have 4 of those.
Hashtag ladies.
The Xbox Elite controller, the Steam Deck, my iPhone 13 Pro, and I will not say what the 4th is. But the software, iOS, it's so limited. I don't need 1,000 apps, but I still like to change a few things. And that grid-based home screen sucks. Without any free icon placement, there is no icon packs, no themes, no colors you can change, and notifications on iOS are just worse than on Android. No debating, they're terrible. You either get way too many, or you pack them in a summary that's really bad to interact with. And also there's no always on display if you don't have the latest iPhone model, which is stupid. And how about Linux phones? Well, there's no hardware that fits my needs, and also the OS is just not ready. I do need a few apps that I cannot replace with a website. My banking app, my workout app, the YouTube Studio app, and a few other things. And
who the fuck use an app to working out? Are people this fucking stupid nowadays that they need an app to work out? The only app I have ever needed to work out is music. If you can call that an app. That's the only thing running on my fucking phone. Well, I do use this now, but do you really need, like, are you so stupid? Are people so stupid nowadays that they can't go to the gym and say, I'm lifting this weight 10 times and do it 3 times. Oh, that was too easy. Next time I'm putting more weight on or doing more repetition. Do they really need an app to tell them that? Oh my
And
God.
as long as Linux phones don't have a perfect way of running Android apps to supplement the gaps, there's no way I can switch to any of that. And of course, this is not a critic of Android, it's my own experience. I realize that my specific wants and needs are what are causing the problem here. But still,
Yeah, he cares more about the design of the phone than the usability of it. That's what it comes down to. And it's fine, but don't sit here and make an 18-minute video ragging on Android because you like the design of an iPhone and you feel like, oh, I'm a Linux guy, I kind of need to justify buying an iPhone. This video here sounds like a justification video for him having an iPhone. Just fucking buy it if you want it, okay?
it means I have to use an OS I don't especially like, and that isn't as private as I'd like, and it sucks. For the time being, Android just isn't working out and Linux phones are not ready.
No, Android is not working out because he don't like the design and he has hardware issues. And they have duplicated ways of doing things. Just like Linux.
So I have to use Apple hardware. Yay!
No, you don't have to use it. I choose to use it because I like the design of it. And now we're getting into a sponsor. And then support the channel. Yeah, fuck that shit. All this video is about is I don't like how any Android phones looks like. And I have an issue with having too many options of doing things under Android. And there's some small things like that. I, however, really like the design of iPhones. So I'm going to find ways of justifying me buying an iPhone. And that's what this whole video is about. Nobody gives a fuck. Just buy the fucking iPhone. This did not need to be a video. I feel he made this video because he's a Linux channel that is using a devil's phone. And if someone knew he was using the devil's phone, he needed an explanation why that is. You don't need, Nick, you don't need to explain to anyone what you're buying for your hard-earned money. You don't need to explain to me, your mom, or anyone else what you're spending your money on. If that's what you want to spend, if you want an iPhone, if you really want an iPhone, buy a fucking iPhone. You're not less of a Linux user, you're not less of a Linux channel or anything like that. If you want an iPhone, get an iPhone. See you all later, have an amazing day, bye bye.